It was the best of weeks. It was the worst of weeks. On Friday, February 21, I clicked my computer's send button, and off to the publisher went my final manuscript so I could get proof copies to edit before finally publishing my first book, Lindsay's Gift, Faith Learnings from a Girl with No Words. I couldn't stop smiling. I'd been wanting to write this book for many years and had been seriously working on pulling it together for about the past 4 years. Success. On Monday, February 24, I went to my scheduled doctor's appointment for a follow-up to the breathing difficulties that I've had since this past fall, when something exacerbated a lung condition that I knew about, but which hadn't ever caused me much problem. The doctor informed me that the flare-up was gone, but the damage, the scarring was permanent, and that I needed to be on supplemental oxygen, that I had to adjust my diet and my exercise. You know I love those two things. I needed to prepare for a lung transplant. I drove home praying, thinking, wondering, crying. I felt distracted, vulnerable, anxious. I felt suddenly mortal. At home, Lydia and I talked and prayed and cried. On Ash Wednesday, February 26, I received my book's proof copies, tangible evidence in my hands of what has been in my soul for 30 years. Anticipatory joy filled my heart as I held in my hands what I wanted for so long. The rest of that week was filled with questions about wills and finances and special needs trust for Lindsay. It was clouded with thoughts of, what if I don't come through this? Doubt and fear and worry. Is this all there is? It was the best of weeks. It was the worst of weeks. On Sunday, March 1st, I shared communion with the Royersford congregation with an abundance of hand sanitizer and caution. After church, I shared with my kids the most recent prognosis and the transplant news. And then, to top off the day, that afternoon, we took my 14-year-old dog, Ella, to be euthanized as her deteriorating health could no longer sustain her. On Tuesday, March 3rd, the New York Times reported 4 nursing home residents had died in Washington state, bringing the U.S. coronavirus death total to 6. That same day, with my rented portable oxygen concentrator strapped to my back, Lydia and I flew to Puerto Rico to visit a mission work team to deliver a disaster relief donation to the bishop and to sit in the sun for just a moment. A mother in the plane row in front of us was disinfecting every possible surface with wipes, a little overly dramatic and cautious, we thought, at the time. On March 8th, I'm back to Royersford Church for worship, no touch passing of the peace, and it was our last time together, face to face, person to person, in worship. March 11th, pandemic. Wash your hands, use hand sanitizer, hoard toilet paper, get masks, social distancing, shelter in place, close businesses, close schools, lockdown. It's a wonder we weren't all running down the street singing REMs. It's the end of the world and we know it. It was the best of weeks. It was the worst of weeks. And here we are, 22 best and worst weeks later, here we are, and we've all been through it all. Later this week, I should know if I meet the criteria to be placed on the lung transplant list. My breathing condition continues to be more problematic. And in the meantime, I've had elbow surgery, my first ever kidney stone, and a battery of medical evaluation tests. Meanwhile, as the week begins, I am a grandfather for the third time. Is this the best of weeks? Or will it devolve into the worst of weeks? Or is it, like most other weeks, a little bit of both? Take heart. It is I. Do not be afraid, said Jesus. Peter answered him, Lord, if it's you, command me to come to you on the water. Jesus said, come. Oh, right. I'm just going to step out onto that nice, calm, wind-blown, wave-crashing, tenuous surface of hydrogen and oxygen molecules and see what happens. We are often tossed and driven on the restless sea of time, wrote Charles Tinley, and we'll understand it better by and by. When the world is tossing me like a ship upon the sea, when the storms of life are raging. Yeah, that body of water, that's what you want me to step into, right, Jesus? Or better yet, what you want me to step onto, Jesus. Lord, if it's you, command me. Come, says Jesus. Many of you know that my dad had one leg as a result of his PBY seaplane crashing in the Pacific during World War II. His left leg was amputated below the knee when he was just 20 years old. So for the 23 years that I knew him, he walked on one leg. And I've recently realized that with one leg, you have little time to decide if you're going to wade into the water. Dad would walk to the lifeguard stand at the beach, unstrap his prosthetic leg as the bewildered young lifeguard looked on. He would lean it against the stand, and on one leg, he would hop down to the ocean line. On one leg, you don't test the water temperature. You hop, you plant your foot, you lean, you let go, and you dive. Come, says Jesus. Lean in, let go, dive. Maybe that's where I am these days. It's time to lean in, to let go, to dive, to trust. Maybe that's where many of us, all of us, are these days. I was looking back at our worship videos from the beginning of this 22-week pandemic water journey that we've been on. The very first Sunday, March 15, we sang that hymn, Tinley's When the Storms of Life Are Raging, and Pastor Lydia and I added a verse, in the midst of this pandemic, stand by me. When the news is so alarming and anxiety is disarming, stand by me. That's where we started this boat trip together, and it hasn't gotten much calmer, has it, along the way? On the restless seas of time, crashing waves of news and opinion, tossing seas of confusion and anxiety, the deep, cold waters of social injustice again revealed to us. So Peter got out of the boat, started walking on the water, and came toward Jesus. He did what? I suspect we often miss that part of the story. We remember that Peter, the Peter who sank when he stepped out of the boat. But that's not what it says here. Peter got out of the boat and he walked on water. He walked on the water toward Jesus. He leaned in, he planted his foot, and he dove in, or he stepped onto that water where Jesus invited him. The tempestuous sea, the whitecaps breaking around him, the wind swirling, the sounds whipping around his head, he walked. It's only when he became frightened that the story shifts. What am I doing? I can't handle this. I can't walk on water. He began to sink. Lord, save me. Even then, in the depth of his sinking trust and the heavy burden of his sinking body, Jesus reaches out again. Come. It's okay. You have little faith. Why did you doubt? Why did I doubt? Jesus, I was walking on water. You saw that, right? Not something I do every day. You may be walking on water, but me, nope. Quite unusual, frightening even. When they got into the boat, the wind ceased. And those in the boat worshiped Jesus, saying, "Truly you are a Son of God." Once back in the boat, the wind ceased. Jesus didn't say anything. He didn't say, "Peace, be still," like in a different story told with a different purpose in Mark's gospel. This Jesus said nothing. Once all together in the boat, the sea calm. This was the best of weeks. This was the worst of weeks for Jesus and his disciples. If we look at this chapter, news of the beheading of John the Baptist starts the worst week. Jesus attracts a crowd of 5,000 plus people, the best. They're hungry and we have no food, the worst. Let's share what we have and see the miracle happen, the best. Jesus made us get into a boat during a storm, the worst. Jesus gets to rest and pray alone, the best. Waves are crashing, the worst. Here comes Jesus, the best. No, it's a ghost, the worst. Peter walked on water, the best. Peter sinks, the worst. The storm stops, the best. Land at Gennesaret on the other side and swamped by crowds of sick people, the worst. And on and on and on the Gospels go, just like that. But we can't lose track of this story, the point of this story. Once all together in the same boat, the tempest stopped, and they could feel safe. Once they were all together in one boat, the calm was upon them. What I find sustaining me when the storms of life are raging and the world is tossing me, what I find sustaining me is knowing that I am not alone in this boat. I know that you are with me in this boat, just as I am with you in whatever rocks your boat. And that brings calm. I know that prayers are offered for me, and that brings calm. I know that I'm surrounded by my family, my birth family, my adopted family, my faith family, and I am sustained. What my current medical conditions mean for me at this moment is that being in a crowded space creates an unacceptable risk of exposure to this novel coronavirus. So my doctors have recommended that I not return to congregational ministry until there is, at a minimum, a vaccine and/or a transplant. And even then, we need to reassess what's going on. So I have requested a medical leave from pastoral ministry to start soon. Some of you at Royersford are hearing that for the first time. Our leadership team has been working with me and with the bishop's office as we plan a path forward. I will be continuing as long as I can in our online capacity, but returning to face-to-face worship for me is not possible. Through it all, I know who's in the boat with me. Jesus is there. You all are there. Great cloud of witnesses from so many faithful generations is there. God is with me. Calm will surround me. The waves will be still. It is the best of weeks. And whenever I pray, whenever I need to remind myself that I have to be sustained, I hear this prayer. When peace like a river attendeth my way, when sorrows like sea billows roll, it is well with my soul. It is well with my soul. Amen.